Hi everyone, my name is Mike Freilich, and hopefully in the next 5 minutes I'll be able to explain how on earth you interpret non-inferiority studies. These slides are primarily meant for the internal medicine residents studying for the Royal College, but hopefully other people find this helpful as well. So 95% of all clinical trials generally fall into two buckets. There are superiority studies, which are the majority. These studies seek out to answer the question, is drug X superior to placebo? Is drug X superior to drug Y? Whereas for non-inferiority studies, we actually don't really care if it's superior. We just want to know, is it not worse than what's available? So you would phrase that as, is drug X not inferior to placebo? Is drug X not inferior to drug Y? Here's a terrific reference that I'm going to be citing throughout, including this really nice figure they've made. So here's the figure if you're unfamiliar with what you're looking at. So this is the point estimate for whether or not the drug worked. This is the upper confidence interval and the lower confidence interval. As a general rule, if we don't cross this line here, this is a line of unity, then we would say, hey, this drug appears to work. If instead this dot was on this side and the confidence intervals were all on this side, we'd say, hey, this drug actually hurts. And this specifically is when we're talking about relative risks. So editors or writers might refer to this as the rate ratio, risk ratio, odds ratio, or hazard ratio. They all fall under the umbrella of relative risk. So in a typical study, you would look at this and say, hey, if it's a superiority trial, this drug is superior. The upper bound of the confidence interval does not cross this line, and the point estimate is less than 1. Of course, we're talking about non-inferiority studies, so how do we interpret this if it was from a non-inferiority study? Well, first we need to know, what is the margin? What is the margin by which we're going to determine, okay, this is not inferior. Sometimes this is set by the FDA, sometimes it's set by the individuals who are running the trial. So we would interpret this as being non-inferior because the upper bound of the confidence interval doesn't cross a dashed line, and also superior. The point estimate is to the left of the line, and the confidence interval doesn't cross 1. This next example, we would call it non-inferior because the confidence interval does not cross the dashed line, and we can't say it's superior because we see that the confidence interval crosses the line of unity. A few more examples which get a little bit tricky. This one we would refer as non-inferior. How come? You guessed it, because it doesn't cross the dashed line. And we'd also call it inferior. The point estimate is to the right of the line of unity, as is its lower confidence bound. This one we would call inconclusive. The confidence intervals are overlapping not only the dashed line, but also the line of unity. And this one here we would call inferior. We call it inferior because the point estimate's above 1. It's definitely inferior. The confidence interval doesn't even cross the line of unity. And we can't say this is non-inferior because it crosses our dashed line. I hope that helps. Let's give a couple of examples to maybe solidify this. So you got a randomized trial and they want to know, is this new generic drug not inferior to the brand name drug? The non-inferiority margin was set at 20%. Now we can see that 7.8% of people who got the generic drug died, as opposed to 8.4% of those who got a brand named drug. So we want to know, is it non-inferior? And the study will provide you with these results. So the hazard ratio, the point estimate, and the confidence intervals. We can now plot this out. So we know that the point estimate is 0.94, the lower bound is 0.84, the upper bound is 1.08, and we call this non-inferior because the upper bound does not cross this line, this dashed line. Let's give one more example. So similar to before, now we have a non-inferiority margin at 2%, and here the study found a 3% absolute risk increase with the following confidence intervals. So we can write all that information out, and this is sneaky because usually we're used to talking about relative risk. Here they're giving us an absolute risk. So for an absolute risk, you just sort of need to know that the line of unity is at 0. How can you remember that? I don't know. Maybe absolute, there's a big O there, so you can remember that the line of unity is O, or 0. Let's draw out what we found. The margin was 2%. The point estimate is 3%. The lower confidence interval is -1. The upper confidence interval goes off the slide all the way up to 7%. And we would call this inconclusive because we're crossing both the dashed line and the line of unity. Thanks so much for your time, and we made it in 5 minutes.